Yeah, I think that's better. Alright. First, let's get the, whatchamadoodle here. There. Alright. Let's see what we get. I still have that new tab. Alright. 3, 2, 1. I don't know what it is. I'm scared for what it is. Oh gosh. Okay, okay. Fair enough. Okay, yeah. Oh boy. Okay. Oh gosh, I got a sense of humor, don't I? Oh. Oh, man. Alright. Hang on. I don't know how far it'll turn. Oh, I didn't detect it because it's... Oh, there it did. Alright. I was hoping that it would have said that. Because I was scared to go back to Animal Crossing. And I thought to myself, hey, didn't I play Animal Crossing already? Or no, not that. Didn't I put that on the wheel already? I was kind of thinking that I did. And I changed it to restart Animal Crossing. Because I was thinking that maybe I should restart the whole thing. Because I don't remember how anything went. Alright. It's hot in here. Here we are, chapter 11, but let me see how long this is. Oh boy, he's gonna start talking about, Ohio State. Okay, so 195. So about 17 pages. Okay, shouldn't be too long. Alright. I arrived for my orientation at Ohio State in early September 2007. Gosh, it's late. I should be reading this. I need to go brush my teeth. And I couldn't have been more excited. I remember every little detail about that day. Lunch at Chipotle, the first time Lindsay had ever eaten there, the walk from the orientation building to the South Campus house that would soon be my Columbus home, the beautiful weather. I met with a guidance counselor who talked me through I thought I saw something move over there. Who talked me through my first college schedule, which put me in class only 4 days per week. I didn't know you could go 4 days a week. Ever. I thought you had to go specifically 5 days a week. No questions asked. You know? They're probably longer days, you know, kind of like how other schools do. They do like an all year round school schedule. Gosh, school schedule, school schedule, school schedule. Well, they both are kind of the same. Yes, I was trying to make a tongue twister. It's probably the all year round thing with 4 days a week, but they're longer. They go from like 8 to 5, maybe. Never before 9:30 in the morning. Really? Never before 9:30? After the Marine Corps, and it's 5:30 a.m. wake-ups, I couldn't believe my good fortune. Ohio State's main campus in Columbus is about 100 miles away from Middletown, meaning it was close enough for weekend visits to my family. For the first time in a few years, I could drop in on Middletown whenever I felt like it. Trying to adjust my watch. I need to loosen it up. It felt too loose when I got out of the shower. Come on. Okay. Where's the, And while Havelock, the North Carolina city closest to my Marine Corps base, was not too different from Middletown, when Columbus felt like an urban paradise. It was, and remains, one of the fastest growing cities in the country, powered in large part by the bustling university that was now my home. And congratulations to Ohio State for their national championship. And they had the newly elected inaugurated president comment on that day on ESPN. I expected that he would have said something there, you know. I was kind of expecting him to be there, but, you know, he had to go through his inaugural stuff, of course. What else? Well, because he went to that one national championship in 2020, probably some others. Anyways, I'll be right back. is this person talking like this? Oh, Lord. Alright, I'm back now. I'm sorry, okay? I had to use the bathroom and brush my teeth. OSU grads were starting businesses, and I'm starting to turn down my fan. That was low. Historic buildings were being I don't know. Too quiet, too loud. Maybe it's just me. Yeah. Historic buildings were being converted into new restaurants and bars, and even the worst neighborhoods seemed to be undergoing, significant revitalization. Not long after I moved to Columbus, one of my best friends began working as the promotions director for a local radio station. So I always knew what was happening around town, and always had an end to the city's best events, from local festivals to VIP seating for the annual fireworks show. That fan's blowing on the wall and it's bouncing onto me. Stay there. And hey. Good. Alright, where am I? In many ways, college was, very familiar. I made a lot of new friends, but virtually all of them were from Southwest Ohio. My 6 roommates included 5 graduates of Middletown High School, and 1 graduate of Edgewood High School in nearby Trenton. They were a little younger. The Marine Corps had aged me past the age of a typical freshman, but I knew most of them from back home. My closest friends had already graduated or were about to, but many stayed in Columbus after graduation. Though I didn't know it, I was witnessing a phenomenon that social scientists call brain drain. People who are able to leave struggling cities often do. When they find a new home with educational and work opportunities, they stay there. Years later, I looked at my wedding party of 6 groomsmen, and I realized that every single one of them had, like me, grown up in a small Ohio town before leaving for Ohio State. To a man, all of them had found careers outside of their hometowns, and none of them had any interest in ever going back. By the time I started at Ohio State, the Marine Corps had instilled in me an incredible sense of invincibility. I'd go to classes, do my homework, study at the library, and make it home in time to drink well past midnight with my buddies. Then wake up early to go running. My schedule was intense, but everything that had made me fear the independent college life when I was 18 felt like a piece of cake now. I had puzzled through those financial aid forms with Mama a few years earlier, arguing about whether to list her or Mom as my parent/guardian. We had worried about that unless I somehow obtained and submitted the financial information of Bob Hamill, my legal father. I'd be guilty of fraud. The whole experience had made both of us painfully aware of how unfamiliar we were with the outside world. I had nearly failed out of high school, earning D's and F's in English 1. Now I had Now I paid my own bills and earned A's in every class I took at my state's flagship university. I felt completely in control of my destiny in a way that I never had before. Don't judge me. Um, I knew that Ohio State was a put up or shut up time. Was put up or shut up time. I had left the Marine Corps not just with a sense that I could do what I wanted, but also with the capacity to plan. I wanted to go to law school, and I knew that I had to go to the best law school. I'd need good grades and to ace the infamous law school admissions test, or LSAT. There was much I didn't know, of course. I couldn't really explain why I wanted to go to law school besides the fact that in Middletown the rich kids were born to either doctors or lawyers, and I didn't want to work with blood. I didn't know how much else I was I didn't know how much else was out there, but the little knowledge I had at least gave me direction, and that was all I needed. I loathed debt and the sense of limitation it imposed. Though the GI Bill paid for a significant chunk of my education, and Ohio State charged relatively little to an in-state resident, I still needed to cover about $20,000 of expenses on my own. I took a job at the Ohio State House, working for a remarkably kind senator from the Cincinnati area named Bob Schuler. He was a good man, and I liked his politics, and when constituents called and complained, I tried to explain his positions. Let me see. Okay, that's an older senator. He passed away. Oh, that kind of Senate. Okay, state Senate. I watched lobbyists come and go and overheard the senator and his staff debate whether a particular bill was good for his constituents, good for his state, or good for both. Observing the political process from the inside made me appreciate it in a way that watching cable news never had. Mammal had thought all politicians were crooks, but I learned that, no matter their politics, that was largely untrue at the Ohio State House. After a few months at the Ohio Senate, as my bills piled up and I found fewer and fewer ways to make up the difference between my spending and my income. One can donate plasma only twice per week, I learned. I wouldn't keep donating too much plasma because you need it. I decided to get another job. Yeah, some people probably want to donate other stuff. We don't need to go into detail. Where was I? One nonprofit advertised a part-time job that paid $10 an hour. It's lower than our minimum wage. But when I showed up for an interview in khakis, an ugly lime green shirt, and the Marine Corps combat boots, my only non-sneakers at the time, and saw the interviewer's reaction, I knew that I was out of luck. I barely noticed the rejection email a week later. A local nonprofit did work for abused and neglected children, and also paid $10 an hour, so I went to Target. Bought a nicer shirt and a pair of black shoes, and came away with a job offer to be a consultant. I cared about their mission, and they were great people. I began work immediately. With 2 jobs and a full-time class load, my schedule intensified, but I didn't mind. I didn't realize that there was any. I didn't realize there was anything unusual about my commitments until a professor emailed me about meeting after class to discuss a writing assignment. When I sent him my schedule, he was aghast. He sternly told me that I should focus on my education and not let work distractions stand in my way. I smiled, shook his hand, and said thanks. I did not need his advice. Heed his advice. Not need. Heed. I like staying up late to work on assignments, waking up early, only 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and patting myself on the back for being able to do it. After so many years of fearing my own future, of worrying that I'd end up like many of my neighbors or family, addicted to drugs or alcohol, in prison, or with kids I couldn't or wouldn't take care of, I felt an incredible momentum. I knew the statistics. I had read the brochures and the social worker's office in the social worker's office when I was a kid. I had recognized the look of pity from the hygienist at the low-income dental clinic. I wasn't supposed to make it, but I was doing just fine on my own. Did I take it too far? Absolutely. I didn't sleep enough. I drank too much and ate Taco Bell nearly every meal. Ugh. A week into what I thought was just a really awful cold, a doctor told me that I had mono. I ignored him and kept living as though NyQuil and DayQuil were magical elixirs. Ugh. That doesn't sound good at all. After a week of this, my urine turned a disgusting brown shade. My temperature registered 103. I realized that I might need to take care of myself, so I downed some Tylenol, drank a couple of beers, and went to sleep. When Mom found out what was happening, she drove to Columbus and took me to the emergency room. She wasn't perfect. She wasn't even a practicing nurse, but she took it as a point of pride to supervise every interaction we had with the healthcare system. She asked the right questions, got annoyed with doctors when they didn't answer directly, and made sure I had what I needed. I spent 2 full days in the hospital as doctors emptied 5 bags of saline to rehydrate me, and discovered that I had contracted a staph infection in addition to the mono, which explained why I grew so sick. The doctors released me to Mom, who wheeled me out of the hospital and took me home to recover. My illness lasted another few weeks, which happily coincided with the break between Ohio State spring and summer terms. When I was in Middletown, I split time between Aunt Wee's and Mom's. Both of them cared for me and treated me like a son. It was my first real introduction to competing emotional demands of Middletown in a post-Mama world. I didn't want to hurt Mom's feelings, but the past had created rifts that would likely never go away. I never confronted these demands head on. I never explained to Mom that no matter how nice and caring she was at any given time, and while I had mono, she couldn't have been a better mother. I just felt uncomfortable around her. To sleep in her house meant talking to husband number 5, a kind man but a stranger who would never be anything to me but a future ex, Mr. Mr. Mom. But the future ex, Mr. Mom. What was it? It meant looking at her furniture and remembering the time I hid behind it during one of her fights with Bob. It meant trying to understand how Mom could be such a contradiction, a woman who sat patiently with me at the hospital for days, and an addict who would lie to her family to extract money from them a month later. I knew that my increasingly close relationship with Aunt Wee hurt Mom's feelings. She talked about it all the time. "I'm your mother, not her," she'd repeat. To this day, I often wonder whether, if I'd had the courage as an adult that as a child, I'd had as a child, Mom might have gotten better. Addicts are at their weakest during emotionally trying times, and I knew that I had the power to save her from at least some bouts of sadness, but I couldn't do it any longer. I didn't know what had changed, but I wasn't that person anymore. Perhaps it was nothing more than self-preservation. Regardless, I couldn't pretend to feel at home with her. After a few weeks of mono, I felt well enough to return to Columbus in my classes. I'd lost a lot of weight, 20 pounds over 4 weeks, but otherwise felt pretty good. Let me just make sure what mono is. Scared to find this out. What? Infectious mononucleosis, often called the kissing disease. It's spread through saliva. You can get it through kissing, but you can also be exposed by sharing a glass or food utensils with someone who has mono. What the hell? What the hell? Usually self-treatable. I don't think anything's self-treatable. With the hospital bills piling up, I got a third job as an SAT tutor at the Princeton Review, which paid an incredible $18 an hour. 3 jobs were too much, so I dropped the job I loved most, my work at the Ohio Senate, which because it paid the least. I needed money and the financial freedom it provided. Not rewarding work. That, I told myself, would come later. Shortly before I left, the Ohio Senate debated a measure that would significantly curb payday lending practices. My senator opposed the bill, one of the few senators to do so. And though he never explained why, I'd like to think that maybe he and I had something in common. The senators and policy staff debating the bill had little appreciation for the role of payday lenders in the shadow economy that people like me occupied. To them, payday lenders were predatory sharks, charging high interest rates on loans and exorbitant fees for cashed checks. The sooner they were snuffed out, the better. To me, payday lenders could solve important financial problems. My credit was awful. What time is it? Thanks to a host of terrible financial decisions, some of which weren't my fault, many of which were. So credit cards weren't a possibility. If I wanted to take a girl out to dinner or needed a book for school and didn't have the money in the bank, I didn't have many options. I probably could have asked my aunt or uncle, but I desperately wanted to do things on my own. One Friday morning, I dropped off my rent check, knowing that if I waited another day, the $50 late fee would kick in. I didn't have enough money to cover the check, but I'd get paid that day and would be able to deposit the money after work. However, after a long day at the Senate, I forgot to grab my paycheck before I left. By the time I realized the mistake, I was already home, and the State House staff had left for the weekend. On that day, the 3-day payday loan with a few dollars of interest enabled me to avoid a significant overdraft fee. The legislators debating the merits of payday lending didn't mention situations like that. The lesson? Powerful people sometimes do things to help people like me without really understanding people like me. My second year of college started pretty much as my first year had, with a beautiful day and a lot of excitement. With the new job, I was a bit busier, but I didn't mind the work. What I did mind was the gnawing feeling that at 24, I was a little too old to be a second year college student. But with 4 years in the Marine Corps behind me, more separated me from the other students than age. During an undergraduate seminar in foreign policy, I listened as a 19-year-old classmate had a hideous beard, spouted off about the Iraq War. He explained that those fighting the war were typically less intelligent than those, like him, who immediately went to college. It showed, he argued, in the wanton way soldiers butchered and disrespected Iraqi civilians. It was an objectively terrible opinion. My friends from the Marine Corps spanned the political spectrum and held nearly every conceivable opinion about the war. Many of my Marine Corps friends were staunch liberals who had no love for our Commander-in-Chief, then George W. Bush. And in that we had sacrificed too much for too little gain. But in none of them had ever uttered such unreflective tripe. As the student prattled on, I thought about the never-ending training on how to respect Iraqi culture. Never show anyone on the bottom of your foot. Never address a woman in traditional Muslim garb without first speaking to a male relative. I thought about the security we provided for Iraqi poll workers and how we studiously explained the importance of their mission without ever pushing our own political views on them. I thought about listening to a young Iraqi who couldn't speak a word of English flawlessly rap every single word of 50 Cent's in the NGA club and laughing along with them and his friends. I thought about my friends who were covered in third-degree burns. Luckily, to have survived an IED attack in the Al-Qaim region of Iraq. And here in this dipshit in a spotty beard, and here with this dipshit in a spotty beard telling our class that we murdered people for sport. Sorry, my back's hurting. Sorry I had to say it twice, but I didn't read it right. I felt an immediate drive to finish college as quickly as possible. I met with a guidance counselor who plotted the exit. I'd need to take classes during the summer and more than double the full-time course load during some terms. It was, even by my heightened standards, an intense year. During my particularly terrible February, I sat down with my calendar and counted the number of days since I slept more than 4 hours a day. The tally was 39, but I continued. In August 2009, after 1 year and 11 months at Ohio State, I graduated with a double major, summa cum laude. I think that's how it's said. I tried to skip my graduation ceremony, but my family wouldn't let me. So I sat in an uncomfortable chair for 3 hours before I walked across the podium and received my college diploma. When Gordon G., then president of the Ohio State Senate, paused for an unusually long photograph with the girl who stood in front of me in line, I extended my hand to his assistant, non-verbally asking for the diploma. She handed it to me, and I stepped behind Dr. G and down off the podium. I may have been the only graduating student that day to not shake his hand. On to the next one, I thought. I knew I'd go to law school later the next year. My August graduation precluded a 2009 start to law school. So I moved home to save money. Aunt Wee had taken Mamaw's place as the family matriarch. She put out the fires, hosted family gatherings, and kept all of us from breaking apart. She had always provided me with a home base after Mamaw's death, but 10 months seemed like an imposition. I didn't like the idea of disrupting her family's routine. But she insisted, JD, this is your home now. It's the only place for you to stay. Those last months living in Middletown were among the happiest of my life. I was finally able to, I was finally a college graduate, and I knew that I'd soon accomplish another dream, going to law school. I worked odd jobs to save money and grew closer to my aunt's two daughters. Oh gosh, my nails. Every day I'd get home from work, dusty and sweaty from manual labor, and sit at the dinner table to hear my teenage cousins talk about their days at school and trials with friends. Sometimes I'd help with homework. On Fridays during Lent, I helped with the fish fries at the local Catholic church. That feeling I had in college, that I had survived decades of chaos and heartbeat and finally come on to the other side, deepened. The incredible optimism I felt on my own life contrasted starkly with the pessimism of so many of my neighbors. Years of decline in the blue-collar economy manifested themselves in the material prospects of Middletown's residents. The Great Recession, and not the great, and the not great recovery that followed, had hastened Middletown's downward trajectory. But there was something almost spiritual in the cynicism of the, I think that's how you say it, of the community at large. Something that went much deeper in a short-term recession. As a culture, we had no heroes. Hang on. Okay, I don't think I skipped a page. I was scared that I did. As a culture, we had no heroes. Certainly not any politician. Barack Obama was then the most admired man in America, and likely still is. No, not anymore. I don't know who is now. To me... Oh, it's not following me anymore. To me, it's... Alright, fine. Don't follow me. I'll control it myself. It's President Trump up there. Without a doubt. My mic fell into the screen. I don't think it did anything to it. Wait a minute. I'm losing where I am. But even when the country was enraptured by his rise, most Middletownians viewed him suspiciously. George W. Bush had few fans in 2008. Many loved Bill Clinton, but many more saw him as the symbol of American moral decay, and Ronald Reagan was long dead. Yeah, that damn Alzheimer's took him away. He got him quickly, though. But he was able to survive longer. Longer than even Glenn Campbell, who fought Alzheimer's for 8 years. Yeah, that Alzheimer's didn't get him that quickly. You know, he was able to tour till the end of 2012. And then he, in the early 2013, he was able to do his final album. But he had to have the producer and his longtime recording partner, Carl Jackson, in there with him as he sang the lines word line by line because he could not remember the lyrics. He was there doing this with them, I guess trying to make him remember the melody and such. you know. And then, he retired, and they put him into a memory facility. Enough about him. He was still able to play the guitar. He had his talent. He couldn't remember the lyrics, nor could he even know what a guitar was. We loved the military, but had no George S. Patton figure in the modern military. I doubt my neighbors could even name a high-ranking military officer. I can't. And we're not going to talk about, Miley. The space program, long a source of pride, had gone the way of the dodo. Now, what was that? I heard that. And with the celebrity astronauts. And with it, the celebrity astronauts. Nothing united us with the core fabric of American society. Well, actually, Jim Levitt is still alive. Jim Levitt, I think. I don't remember his name. A thing that said, Houston, we may have a problem or something. Houston, I think that we have a problem. That's how he actually said it, somewhat. I remember I was at the Saturn V rocket at the Johnson Space Center. And I said it out loud. Houston, we have a problem. Yeah, Dad was explaining to me Apollo 13, what happened. Nothing united us to the core fabric of American society. We felt trapped in two seemingly unwinnable wars, and with it a disproportionate share of the fighters came from our neighborhood, and in an economy that failed to deliver the most basic promise of an American dream, a steady wage. Going back to Obama, he was still the incumbent president there. It wasn't decided who would be the next president. Though President Trump did actually use this book to show why rural people support him. But J.D. Vance then criticized him. But he took back those criticisms and supported him later on, even becoming his running mate for this term as the 47th president. Where was I? To understand the significance of this cultural detachment, you must appreciate that much by families. My neighborhoods and my community's identity derives from our love of country. I couldn't tell you a single thing about Breathitt County's mayor, its healthcare services, or its famous residents. But I do know this. Bloody Breathitt allegedly earned its name because the county filled its World War I draft quota entirely with volunteers, the only county in the entire United States to do so. Nearly a century later, and that's the factoid of Breathitt that I remember best. It's the truth that everyone around me ensured I knew. I once interviewed Mamaw for a upper class project about World War II. After 70 years filled with marriage, children, grandchildren, death, poverty, and triumph, the thing about which Mamaw was unquestionably the proudest and most excited was that she and her family did their part during World War II. We spoke for minutes about everything else, We spoke for hours about war rations, Rosie the Riveter, and Dad's wartime love letters, and her mother from the Pacific, and the day we dropped the bomb. Mama always had two gods, Jesus Christ and the United States of America. No, Jesus Christ is not God. He is the Son. But also an incarnation of God. I was no different, and neither was anyone else I knew. I'm the kind of patriot whom people on the Isla corridor laugh at. I choke up when I hear Lee Greenwood's cheesy anthem, proud to be an American. It's God bless the USA. Where do people get proud to be an American? I don't get this. Speaking of, President Trump over there used it. No, that's George Jones there. President Trump is on this picture here. Here. He used it on his rallies. And apparently Glenn Campbell over there, he sang it at one of his live concerts. Not in support of President Trump. He never got to be around for President Trump. He was still alive during President Trump's first term, but he was here, but he was gone because he had Alzheimer's. When I was 16, I vowed that every time I met a veteran, I would go out of my way to shake his or her hand, even if I had to awkwardly interject to do so. To this day, I refuse to watch Saving Private Ryan around anyone but my closest friends, because I can't stop crying. I can't stop from crying during the final scene. I saw the scene of, D-Day. I can hardly look at it. I had to keep looking away from it. It was too much for me. Mama and Papa taught me that we live in the best and greatest country on earth. This fact gave me meaning to my childhood. Whenever times were tough, when I felt overwhelmed by the drama and the tumult of my youth, I knew that better days were ahead because I lived in a country that allowed me to make the good choices that others hadn't. When I think today about my life and how genuinely incredible it is, a gorgeous, kind, brilliant life partner, the financial security it is, a gorgeous, I am reading this wrong. When I think today about my life and how genuinely incredible it is, a gorgeous, kind, brilliant life partner, the financial security that I dreamed about as a child, great friends, and exciting new experiences, I feel overwhelming appreciation for these United States. I know it's corny, but it's the way I feel. Like I got something on my nose or something. If Mama's second God was the United States of America, then many people in my community were losing something akin to a religion, the tie that bound them to their neighbors, that inspired them in the way my patriotism, I can't read this right, had always inspired me, had seemingly vanished. The symptoms are all around us. Significant percentages of white conservative voters, about 1/3, believe that Barack Obama is a Muslim. In one poll, 32% of conservatives said that they believed Obama was a foreign-born and another 19% said they were unsure. Which means that a majority of white conservatives aren't certain that Obama is even an American. He was born in Hawaii. I regularly hear from acquaintances or distant family members that Obama has ties to Islamic extremes, or is a traitor, or was born in some flag-flung corner of the world. Many of my new friends blame racism for this perception of the president, most likely. But the president feels like an alien to many Middletonians. Sorry, I've read it wrong this whole time. For reasons that having nothing to do with skin color. Recall that not a single one of my high school classmates attended an Ivy League school. Barack Obama attended 2 of them and excelled at both. He is brilliant, wealthy, and speaks like a constitutional law professor, which of course he is. Nothing about him bears any resemblance to the people I admired growing up. His accent, clean, perfect neutral, is foreign. His credentials, my hat fell, his credentials are so impressive that they're frightening. He made his life in Chicago, a dense metropolis, and a terrible sanctuary city, just like that damn New York City and terrible Boston, with that terrible bitch of a mayor. And he conducts himself with a confidence that comes from knowing that the modern American meritocracy was born for him. Of course, Obama overcame adversity in his own right. Of course, Obama came adversity familiar to many of us. I can't read this right. But that was long before any of us knew him. President Obama came on the scene right as many people in my community began to believe that the modern American meritocracy was not built for them. Yeah. Pretty sure he's hinting to racism. We know that we're not doing well. We see it every day in the obituaries for teenage kids that conspicuously omit the cause of death. Reading between the lines, overdose. In the deadbeats, we watch our daughters waste their time with omit the cause of death, reading between the lines, overdose. I'm not sure if I'm reading this right. Barack Obama strikes at the heart of our deepest insecurities. He's a good father, while many of us aren't. He wears suits to his job, while we wear overalls, if we were lucky enough to have a job at all. His wife tells us that we shouldn't be feeding our children certain foods, and we hate her for it, not because we think she's wrong, but because we know she's right. Well, we don't like her at all, especially with her nonsense that she's saying right now. Seems like my mouth's like crooked. I don't know. Many try to blame the anger and cynicism. How do you say that? I can't say it. I don't even know that word.
Cynicism.
Cynicism. Yeah, I don't know that word. Many try to blame the anger. What am I talking about? Many try to blame the anger and cynicism of working class whites on misinformation. Admittedly, there was an industry of conspiracy mongers and fringe lunatics writing about all manner of idiocy, from Obama's alleged religious learnings to his ancestry. But every major, oh my gosh, what? But every major news organization, even the oft maligned, malignant, is that what it? How is it said?
Maligned.
Oft maligned Fox News has always told the truth about Obama's citizenship status and religious views. Fox News tells the truth, see? That's why he's been on that news. The people I know are well aware of what the major news organizations have to say about the issue. They simply don't believe them. Only 6% of American voters believe that the media is very trustworthy. Citation 21. To many of us, the free press, that bulwark of American democracy, is simply full of shit. The little trust of in the press, there's no check on the internet conspiracy theories that rule the digital world. Barack Obama is a foreign alien actively trying to destroy our country. Everything the media tells us is a lie. Many of the working class, many in the white working class believe the worst about their society. Here's a small sample of emails or messages I've seen from friends or family. From right-wing radio talker Alex Jones on 10-year anniversary of 9/11 and a documentary about the unanswered question of the terrorist attacks, suggesting that the U.S. government played a role in the massacre of its own people. From an email chain, a story that the Obamacare legislation requires microchip implantation in the new health care patients. This story carries extra bite. Because of the religious implications. Many believe that the end times mark of the beast foretold in biblical prophecy will be an electronic device. No. Multiple friends warned others about this threat via social media. From the popular website WorldNet Daily, an editorial suggesting that the Newtown gun massacre was engineered by the federal government to turn public opinion on gun control measures. From multiple internet sources suggest that Obama will soon implement martial law in order to secure power for a third presidential term. You know, Mom tried saying that that Biden would have probably tried to do that, and then would have resigned and just gave it to Kamala. Luckily, President Trump is president. The list goes on. It's possible to know how many people believe one or many of these stories, but if a third of our uh, community questions the president's origin, despite all evidence to the contrary, it's a good bet that the other conspiracies have broader currency than we'd like. This isn't some libertarian mistrust of government policy, which is healthy in any democracy. This is deep skepticism of the very institutions of our society, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. We can't trust the evening news. We can't trust our politicians, our universities, the gateway to a better life, are rigged against us. We can't get jobs. You can't believe these things and participate meaningfully in society. Social psychologists uh, have shown that group belief is a powerful motivator in performance. When groups perceive that it's in their interest to. Did I get my hat? I did. Where did I put it? Oh, I put it back there. When groups perceive that it's in their interest to work hard and achieve things, members of that group outperform other similarly situated individuals. It's obvious why. If you believe that hard work pays off, then you work hard. If you think it's hard to get ahead even when you try, then why try at all? Similarly, when people do fail, this mindset allows them to look outward. I once ran into an old acquaintance at a Middletown bar who told me that he recently quit his job because he was sick of waking up early. I later saw him complaining on Facebook about the Obama economy and how it had affected his life. I I don't doubt that the Obama economy has affected many, but this man is absurdly not among them. His status in his life is directly attributable to the choices he's made, and his life will improve only through better decisions. But for him to make better decisions, he needs to live in an environment that forces him to ask tough questions about himself. This is a cultural movement in the white working class to blame problems on society or the government, and movement gains adherents by the day. And that movement gains adherents by the day. Here is where the rhetoric of modern conservatives, and I say this as one of them, fails to meet the real challenges of their biggest constituents. Instead of encouraging engagement, conservatives increasingly foment the kind of detachment that has sapped the ambition of so many of my peers. I have watched some friends blossom into successful adults and others fall victim to the worst of Middletown's temptations: premature parenthood, drugs, incarceration. What separates the successful from the unsuccessful are the expectations that they had for their own lives. Yet the message of the right is increasingly, it's not your fault that you're a loser, it's the government's fault. My dad, for example, was never disparaged hard has never disparaged hard work, but he mistrusts some of the most obvious paths to an upward mobility. When he found out that I had decided to go to Yale Law, he asked whether on my applications I had pretended to be black or liberal. This is how the cultural expectations of working class whites have fallen. We should hardly be surprised that as attitudes like this one spread, the number of people willing to work for a better life diminishes. The Pew Economic Mobility Project studied how Americans evaluated their chances at economic betterment. And what they found was shocking. There was no group of Americans more pessimistic than working class whites. Well over half of blacks, Latinos, and college educated whites expect that their children will fare better economically than they have. Working class whites, only 44% share that expectation. Even more surprising, 42% of working class whites, by far the highest number in the survey, report that their lives are less economically successful than those of their parents. In 2010, that just wasn't my mindset. I was happy about where I was and overwhelmingly hopeful about the future. For the first time in my life, I felt like an outsider in Middletown. And what turned me into an alien was my optimism. And that was chapter 11. And no, I will not read chapter 12 tonight. I'll be going to bed now. Thank y'all for watching this stream. Please like, subscribe, comment, whatever. And I'll see you guys soon. God bless.